3 hours before the most important performance of her career, Whitney Houston woke up and couldn't make a sound. What happened next became the most legendary vocal moment in American history. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever lost your voice at the worst possible moment? This true story will blow your mind. It was January 27th, 1991, and America was holding its breath. The Gulf War was raging overseas, yellow ribbons decorated every street corner, and the entire nation needed something to believe in. Super Bowl XXV wasn't just a football game between the Buffalo Bills and New York Giants. It was a moment of unity, patriotism, and hope during one of America's most uncertain times. And at the center of it all was Whitney Elizabeth Houston, scheduled to sing the Star-Spangled Banner to 750 million viewers worldwide. But when Whitney opened her eyes that Sunday morning in her luxurious Tampa Bay hotel suite, something was terribly, devastatingly wrong. She tried to speak her usual morning prayer. Nothing came out except a raspy whisper that sounded like sandpaper scraping against glass. She tried to clear her throat, hoping it was just morning grogginess. The burning sensation shot through her vocal cords like lightning. Whitney Houston, the woman with the most powerful voice in America, the vocal powerhouse who could shatter glass with her high notes, was completely voiceless on the most important day of her entire career. Oh my God, this cannot be happening," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible even in the dead silence of her hotel room. She reached for the phone to call her manager, Nicole David, but stopped mid-dial. How do you tell someone you can't do the one thing that made you the most famous singer in the world? How do you explain that the voice America was counting on had simply vanished overnight? Whitney stumbled to the bathroom mirror and stared at her reflection in horror. Her throat felt like she had swallowed broken glass. Her vocal cords, usually her most reliable instrument, the gift that had carried her from the gospel pews of New Hope Baptist Church in Newark to the top of the charts worldwide, had betrayed her at the absolute worst possible moment. This wasn't just any performance she was about to miss. This was the Super Bowl. This was America's national anthem during wartime, when soldiers overseas needed to hear their homeland's song. This was 103,000 people packed into Tampa Stadium and nearly 1 billion people watching on television across the globe. This was the performance that would define her legacy forever. But the worst news was yet to come. Her manager, Nicole David, was already banging on the hotel room door at 9:15 a.m. "Whitney, honey, we need to leave for the stadium rehearsal in exactly 2 hours. The NFL officials are expecting us, and CBS wants to run sound checks." When Whitney opened the door wearing her silk pajamas, her eyes red and panicked, and tried to speak, Nicole's face went completely white. The color drained from her cheeks as she realized what she was hearing, or rather, what she wasn't hearing. "What happened to your voice?" Nicole asked, her voice rising with panic. "I don't know," Whitney managed to croak out, each word feeling like razor blades in her throat. "I just woke up like this. It's completely gone, Nicole. Completely gone." Nicole immediately grabbed her phone and dialed Clive Davis, Whitney's mentor and the powerful head of Arista Records. Within minutes, the entire team was in complete panic mode. Assistant managers, publicists, record label executives, and NFL coordinators were all being frantically called. How do you cancel the Super Bowl? How do you tell the United States of America that their moment of unity, their symbol of hope during wartime, just fell apart because a singer caught a cold? "Get her a doctor," Clive commanded over the phone from New York, his usually calm voice filled with urgency. "Get her 3 doctors. Get her the best throat specialist in America. Get her whatever she needs. This absolutely cannot happen. The entire country is counting on this moment." Whitney sat on the edge of her king-sized hotel bed, tears streaming down her face, staring out at the Tampa Bay skyline where she could see the massive stadium in the distance. She thought about her mother, Sissy Houston, the gospel legend who had trained her voice since she was a tiny girl singing in the children's choir at church. She thought about all the gospel singers like Aretha Franklin and Mahalia Jackson who had paved the way for her crossover success. She thought about the young soldiers overseas who needed this moment of home, this reminder of what they were fighting for. "I can't disappoint them," she whispered to herself, her damaged voice barely audible. I can't disappoint America. Not today. Not when they need this most. Dr. Harvey Karp, one of Los Angeles's most renowned vocal specialists, was contacted and immediately boarded a private plane. But even traveling at top speed, he wouldn't arrive until noon, giving Whitney barely 3 hours before the scheduled 6:25 p.m. performance. Nicole was already fielding dozens of calls from NFL officials, CBS television executives, military representatives, and even government officials asking for updates on Whitney's condition. The pressure was mounting by the minute. America was watching, the world was waiting, and Whitney Houston was losing hope. With 2 hours left, something miraculous started to happen. Whitney's phone rang with a call that would change everything. It was her mother, Sissy Houston, calling from her home in Newark, New Jersey. Somehow, through the network of music industry connections, word had gotten to her about Whitney's vocal emergency, and Sissy was already at Newark Airport boarding the next flight to Tampa. Baby girl, Sissy said firmly over the phone, her voice carrying the strength and wisdom of decades in the gospel music world. Your voice doesn't come from your throat. It never has. Your voice comes from your soul, from your spirit, from God himself, and God doesn't fail us when we need him most. Whitney broke down crying at her mother's words. Mama, what if it doesn't work? What if I can't sing? What if I let everyone down? Out of key, child, Sissy replied with the authority of a woman who had raised one of the greatest voices in music history. Do you remember when you were 8 years old and you came to me after church service, crying because you said you wanted to sing for the whole world, but you were afraid you weren't good enough? Do you remember what I told you that day? Whitney shook her head, tears streaming down her face as she held the phone with trembling hands. I told you that when God gives you a gift that extraordinary, that powerful, he also gives you the strength and courage to use it when it matters most. Today, baby girl, today matters most. Within 90 minutes, Sissy Houston was walking through the hotel room door, carrying a large bag full of traditional gospel remedies that had been passed down through generations of church singers. Pure honey from a local beekeeper, fresh lemons, ginger root, eucalyptus oil, and a small bottle of anointing oil that had been blessed by their family pastor back at New Hope Baptist Church. Mama, what if none of this works? Whitney asked, her voice still barely a whisper, panic evident in her eyes. Child, Sissy said, taking her daughter's hands in hers and looking directly into her eyes with the fierce love only a mother can possess. Do you think I flew down here to watch you fail? Do you think God brought you this far to drop you now? We're going to fix this, and you're going to sing like the angel I know you are. Sissy immediately began preparing the traditional remedies that had saved countless gospel singers' voices over the decades. She made Whitney gargle with warm salt water infused with honey, drink steaming hot tea mixed with lemon and ginger, and breathe deeply from a bowl of hot water with eucalyptus oil while a towel covered her head. But most importantly, Sissy made Whitney remember exactly who she was beneath all the fame and pressure. You're not just Whitney Houston, the international superstar, Sissy said softly as she massaged her daughter's neck with warm oil. You're Whitney Elizabeth Houston, the little girl who used to stand on milk crates to reach the church microphone and make every single person in that sanctuary cry tears of joy with your voice. That little girl is still in there, and her voice comes from something much deeper than throat muscles and vocal cords. It comes from the same place that made you sing in the first place, pure love. But there was still one devastating problem no one saw coming. Dr. Harvey Karp arrived at the hotel at 12:30 p.m. and immediately examined Whitney's throat using a laryngoscope. The diagnosis was severe acute laryngitis with significant vocal cord inflammation and swelling. In medical terms, she should not be singing at all for at least a week, let alone attempting one of the most vocally challenging songs in American music. A song that requires nearly 2 full octaves of range and incredible breath control. Miss Houston, Dr. Karp said gravely, setting down his medical equipment and looking directly at Whitney with the serious expression of a doctor delivering difficult news. I need to be completely honest with you. Your vocal cords are severely inflamed and swollen. I can give you anti-inflammatory medications and steroids to reduce the swelling, but I cannot guarantee your voice will be strong enough for this performance. The Star-Spangled Banner has a range of nearly 2 octaves, and requires tremendous vocal control. In your current condition, attempting it could cause permanent damage to your voice. The hotel room fell into complete silence. Whitney looked at her mother, then at Nicole, then back at the doctor, feeling the weight of an entire nation's expectations pressing down on her shoulders. "Doctor, what are my realistic options here?" Whitney asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "Complete vocal rest for the remainder of the day and hope for significant improvement, or—" Dr. Karp paused, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to suggest. "We seriously consider having a pre-recorded backup track available." The room fell silent again. Using a backup track meant lip syncing. For an artist like Whitney Houston, whose entire reputation and career had been built on her extraordinary live vocal abilities, whose voice was considered the gold standard in the music industry, this suggestion was almost unthinkable. It went against everything she stood for as an artist. "I've never lip-synced a performance in my entire life," Whitney whispered, the words feeling like defeat. "Baby," Sissy said gently, moving to sit beside her daughter on the bed. "Sometimes the bravest thing isn't proving how strong you are. Sometimes the bravest thing is being smart enough to ask for help when you need it. Sometimes courage looks like finding a way to serve others, even when you're struggling." With exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes remaining before departure to the stadium, Whitney made a decision that would change everything and redefine what it means to be a professional performer. She would record a backup track in the hotel room, but she would also attempt to sing live during the actual performance. If her voice failed completely during the live performance, the backup would seamlessly save America's moment. But she was going to give everything she had, every ounce of strength and determination, to deliver the real thing for the country she loved. As Whitney prepared to leave for Tampa Stadium, she made a decision that would change everything. The impromptu recording session in the hotel room was unlike anything Nicole, Sissy, or Dr. Karp had ever witnessed in their decades in the music industry. Despite her severely damaged condition, Whitney somehow channeled something primal, spiritual, and incredibly powerful. Her voice, though strained and fragile, carried every ounce of emotion she felt for her country, her family, and the soldiers fighting overseas. Using a small portable recording device that Nicole had grabbed from her equipment bag, Whitney sang through the Star-Spangled Banner 3 times, each take capturing different emotional nuances. On the final take, when she reached the land of the free and the home of the brave, her damaged voice somehow found a strength that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the physical. "That's it," Sissy said, tears in her eyes after hearing the final take. "That's the one. That's pure spirit singing through a wounded instrument." At Tampa Stadium, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. 103,000 fans were already filling their seats, many holding American flags and wearing yellow ribbon pins to support the troops. The Buffalo Bills and New York Giants were in their respective locker rooms, preparing for what would become one of the most memorable Super Bowls in history. Television crews were setting up cameras that would broadcast to nearly 1 billion viewers worldwide. America was watching, the world was listening, and Whitney Houston was walking onto that field with a voice that might completely fail her at any moment. She wore a white tracksuit with bold red and blue accents, her hair flowing behind her in the Florida wind as she walked across the field to the microphone positioned at midfield. In her earpiece, sound technicians had set up both the live audio feed and the backup track, giving her the choice moment by moment to rely on either one, depending on how her voice held up. The opening instrumental notes of "The Star-Spangled Banner" began playing through the stadium's massive sound system. Whitney closed her eyes, thought about her mother's words about singing from her soul, thought about the soldiers overseas, thought about America needing this moment, and opened her mouth. What came out was pure, undiluted power and emotion. Whether it was adrenaline, divine intervention, prayer, or the sheer force of will and determination, Whitney's voice soared higher and stronger than it had any right to given her condition. She hit the opening notes with crystal clarity. She delivered what so proudly we hailed, with runs and melismas that gave everyone in the stadium chills. When she reached in the rocket's red glare, her voice climbed to heights that seemed impossible. By the time she reached the land of the free with its famous vocal runs, the entire stadium was on its feet, and by home of the brave, many of the 103,000 people in attendance had tears streaming down their faces. The performance was absolutely flawless. America had its moment of unity and hope. Whitney had delivered what many would later call the greatest national anthem performance in Super Bowl history. But the real magic happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Backstage in the tunnel beneath Tampa Stadium, Whitney collapsed completely in her mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The massive adrenaline rush was wearing off, and her voice was completely gone again. Even worse than it had been that morning. Her vocal cords had given her exactly 4 minutes and 5 seconds of perfection, and now they were done. "I did it, Mama," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to Sissy, who was holding her. "I really did it. I didn't let them down." "I knew you would, baby girl," Sissy replied, stroking her daughter's hair like she had when Whitney was a little girl. "I never doubted you for a single second. That wasn't just you singing out there. That was God singing through you." Nicole stood nearby, still in shock at what she had just witnessed. "Whitney, that was impossible. Medically, physically, that should not have been possible given your condition this morning." What the public didn't know for many years afterward was that Whitney had indeed used a combination of her live vocals and strategic portions of the backup track. During the gentler, lower register moments of the song, her natural voice carried through beautifully. During the most challenging high notes and vocal runs, the pre-recorded track provided seamless support. It was a flawless blend that even experienced audio engineers called absolute genius, a perfect marriage of technology and artistry that preserved both the authenticity of the performance and the magic of the moment. The truth about the backup track didn't emerge until years later, and when it did, America's response was completely understanding and forgiving. People realized that Whitney had done everything humanly possible to deliver an authentic performance while protecting the moment that meant so much to the entire country during a time of war and uncertainty. Dr. Karp, who had watched the performance from the sidelines, later said it was one of the most remarkable examples of mind over matter he had ever witnessed in his medical career. What Whitney accomplished that day defied medical explanation. Her determination and spiritual strength literally overcame physical limitations. The most incredible part of this story is what it taught us all about courage, determination, and the power of refusing to give up. Whitney's Super Bowl performance immediately became the gold standard for all national anthem performances that followed. The recording shot straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, making it the only Super Bowl national anthem performance ever to achieve that feat. All proceeds from the single's sales went directly to military families and veteran support organizations, raising over $2 million for troops and their loved ones. More than 30 years later, Whitney's performance is still played at major sporting events, patriotic ceremonies, and military tributes across America. It has been viewed hundreds of millions of times online, and music critics consistently rank it as the greatest national anthem performance in American history. But beyond the accolades and chart success, Whitney's Super Bowl moment taught us something profoundly important about the human spirit. It showed us that sometimes our greatest moments come not from perfection or ideal circumstances, but from sheer courage and determination. Whitney Houston faced every performer's worst nightmare, losing her voice when she needed it most, and found a way to triumph anyway through preparation, family support, and refusing to surrender. In interviews years later, Whitney would reflect on that Tampa Sunday with gratitude rather than embarrassment about needing technological assistance. "People think singers are superhuman," she told Oprah Winfrey in 1993, "but we're just people with a gift, and sometimes that gift needs help to reach its full potential. There's no shame in accepting help when it means you can serve others and give them what they need." The lesson she taught that day in Tampa Stadium was about much more than music or entertainment. It was about showing up even when you're terrified. It was about finding creative solutions when traditional approaches fail. It was about accepting support without losing your dignity or authenticity. It was about serving something bigger than yourself even when everything in your personal world is falling apart. Most importantly, Whitney showed us that vulnerability and strength can coexist beautifully. She was vulnerable enough to admit she needed help, yet strong enough to step onto that field and deliver for millions of people counting on her. Whitney Houston lost her voice 3 hours before the Super Bowl, but in doing so, she found something infinitely more valuable: Proof that our greatest challenges often become our most defining triumphs when we refuse to quit and find creative ways to persevere. Her mother, Sissy, was absolutely right that morning in the hotel room. Whitney's voice didn't come from her throat or her vocal cords. It came from something deeper and more powerful, something that couldn't be taken away by illness, fear, or physical limitations. It came from love. Love for her country, love for her art, love for her family, and love for all the people who were counting on her to deliver hope during a dark time. That January morning in Tampa, America desperately needed a miracle to lift spirits during wartime. A voiceless singer in a hotel room became that miracle by refusing to give up and finding a way to deliver exactly what the country needed when it needed it most. The young woman who woke up unable to speak gave America its voice back and reminded the entire world what the land of the free and the home of the brave really means. If this incredible story of determination, family love, and triumph over impossible odds moved you, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of perseverance and creative problem solving. Have you ever had to perform or deliver when everything seemed to be going wrong? Let us know in the comments below about a time when you had to find strength you didn't know you had. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing true stories about the heart, courage, and determination behind music's greatest moments.